Shambhavi Priya and I welcome you all in my channel, which is Shambhavi e-learning classes. So basically, as you guys know, we are going on with class 7 history. This is chapter number 2 and this is part 5 of it, which is new kings and kingdoms. Well, this is part 5. In this part, we will learn about agriculture and administration of Chola's empire. So our main aim, our main trivia is to learn about life of the Cholas in town. So the people or the ordinary people who would live in Chola empire, what are they, how they live, that thing we will learn today, right? So let's begin with our today's quote of the day. You only live once, but if you do it right, once is enough, said by Mae West, right? So basically today we will learn about agriculture and administration of the Cholas empire, right? So let's get started. So let's talk about agriculture first, right? Now the farmers under the rule of the Cholas have come so far due to the new developments in agriculture. There were a lot of developments in Chola empire, you see. Now let's study those developments that occurred in that particular time. Now in the first image you see here, this is a field of rice. Now it will surely span a longer distance in those period of time. Like in Chola's empire, there would be fields running over more than 100 acres. You see, more than 100 acres, there were fields like that, right? Now large scale cultivation like this, like 100 acres and all, these are the large cultivation, right? Now like these large cultivation only fully developed around 5th or 6th century, right? And before 5th or 6th century, it doesn't develop much, right? What happened is that our ancestors was not having much space, right? Because before it was not having so large area of land for mass cultivation. It was not having land. So what happened is that their ancestors, our ancestors, have to clear off some parts of the forest, and in other areas lands are labeled carefully, right? So you have got this, right? So you know, now here we are talking about the matter of land distance, right? We are talking about land here. So the land fully developed in 5th or 6th century. Filled, or you can say filled land, right? So filled land just extended over the time over 5th or 6th century. And before that, the land doesn't develop much because there was not having much area to cultivate the crops. And as it was not having the area, there would be not much rice, you know, there would be not much crops, right? And before 5th and 6th century, we are having a large amount of mass cultivation, right? So how the ancestors have got a solution? Well, they just cleared off some parts of the forest and labeled the fields, right? And because of this, it developed nicely, right? Now this rice field spanning over 100 acres need water, right? Now yes, indeed the area is large now. 100 acres is very large area, you see. Now this rice, when it comes to rice, you see, rice need a lot of water to grow, right? This crop needs a lot of water. Not only rice, there are many crops that need water. In fact, every crop needs water to grow, right? So now, well, there is never be a complaint of scarcity of water. You ask how? Well, it is because of the river Kaveri. During the monsoon season, the river would often overflow, leaving a fertile deposit all around its bank. Got that? So now we are talking about Chola empire, right? So the Chola empire is basically located in the banks of the Kaveri river, right? Means in Chola empire, Kaveri river is there, right? So there was never been a complaint of scarcity of water. Scarcity of water means shortage of water. So there was never been a complaint of shortage of water. There was always a lot of water. So what happened is that Kaveri river, you see a Kaveri river during the monsoon season. You see, in the monsoon season, the river will flow very much, right? So in the monsoon season, the river would often overflow, right? Overflow means in amount, right? Not much overflow. It overflow in a data, right? Now it leaves a fertile deposit all around its bank. Whose bank? Kaveri river's bank. The delta was a place which have never shortage of water, right? So here's a new term which I have explained to you, which is delta. So delta is nothing, basically is a place which have never shortage of water. So we can say that Kaveri river is also an Kaveri delta. Got that? Because it have never shortage of water. Got that? And it provides the perfect environment to grow any crop. You see, Got that? So a delta is a place which have never a shortage of water, and we can grow crops. It provides the best environment to grow any crops, or rice, as rice needs a lot of water compared to other crops, right? That's why you can just grow crops near the Kaveri river. It's okay. Now sometimes too much of good thing is also bad, right? Sometimes what happens that sometimes overflow a bit too much. Now this is horrible thing for the farmers, right? As their all crops would be destroyed, right? It will flood out all the fields and ruins all the crops. I hope you got that. What I am trying to say here, right? Now what I mean here is that you see Kaveri river sometimes overflow, leaving a fertile deposit all around its bank. Now what if the Kaveri river overflow a bit too much? It can be horrible for the farmers, because all its crops would be ruined, right? All its its mehnat all would be just gone into hell, right? Now they have got to do something about this, right? They have to save their crops, right? Because it will be overflow about them. That's why they got the idea, right? They have to save their crops. They think upon the idea of the ways how to control the overflow. Then the idea comes to build a really strong wall. It will prevent the river from flooding their fields, right? Now that's how they come up with embankments, right? So now we will learn about what is embankments. Well, you see this structure here. First, this structure. Now this structure is called embankments. This is called embankment. These embankments are made up of stones and earth. Basically, these are stone walls, right? The walls you see around us. Not like them. It is different. It is differently made, right? It is made up of earth and stones, right? Now these are basically like a strong wall, right? It will control that overflow, right? These embankments are made up of stones and earth. By the passing time, it grows stronger and stronger, and the farmers also raised their fields, right? So that they can be a fertility deposit, right? Then the struggle comes related to the irrigation. Yes, now we have controlled the overflow of the river. Yes, by the help of embankments. By the help of the embankments, we have controlled the overflow. So I hope you got it. What is embankment? Embankment is nothing but, you see, a strong wall, builded upon by the river, which will prevent the river from flooding their fields. That's how, right? That's nothing but embankments. Now we have learned about how to control the overflow of the river. Now the struggle comes related to the irrigation. And the people and the farmer can't carry the pots of water from the river and then to the fields, right? It made them exhausting, isn't it? You just think over a time that just you have took a pot, the water in that, and you will just go to the field and just water it. Again you come to the river, again you fill that pot, again you just fill it up there. Now this is quite a tiring work, right? So we have got to do something about this, right? So but again and again they came upon the solution. They finally come up with the concept of canals. It was a beautiful invention, you see. This canal carry the water from the river to the field. So there's a connection here. So it carries water from the river to the fields, so that the farmers or the people who live there can't carry crops, can't carry pots of water from rivers and then to the fields, right? This process happens again and again, which makes the farmers and the people exhausted. That's why they had made the invention of canals, right? So basically this canal carry the water from the river to the fields, right? In some areas where the water is abundantly available, where it is a low area, right, where the water is not available much, right, where there is not much available of water, 2 crops are grown in 1 year, right? Now they have been very easy for doing that, right? In certain areas where there was not easy to construct canals, there comes variety of an artificial irrigation, right? So listen my thing, where canals can't be made, or no, the requirement of making canals are not being fulfilled. For that, it they provided artificial irrigation, and artificial irrigation was implemented. Now in some areas large numbers of well was dug, right? The tanks, right, the water tanks are constructed to collect rainwater. Now you see, the irrigation needs proper planning and organization. That's why there they have organizers, right, separate organizers to take care of all the planning. They first look at the problem and then find a fit and appropriate solution. Now by talking to all the farmers and the engineers, right, the plan is carefully made such that the water can be shared according to the requirement of the field. Because if the plan is not made carefully, the organization would be here, there and here, there, so that the requirement of the field would be not fulfilled. That's why the plan is to be carefully done so that the water can be shared accordingly to the requirements of the field, right? Now there's dams, canals, wells and embankments. These are all built with the best materials so that there is barely any maintenance, right? Barely any maintenance after its construction. What I mean from this word is that, you see, now if I had made the canals, I had made embankments. Now you see, yeah, I have to, now irrespective of that, we have to plan for the maintenance, right, to be maintained. But they just, the engineers who makes the embankments and all, they just make it carefully so that there is barely any maintenance after it is constructed, right? Now let's take an example. Sluice gate. You have heard of sluice gate anytime? Yes, we have heard of, right? In last class also we have heard of many times. What? Sluice gate. Well, if you heard it for the first time, don't worry, I will just tell you. Now this sluice gate was built in 9th century, right? Now basically sluice gate is a type of barrier made up of wood. Well, in Chola Empire it would be made up of wood, but now we have metals and modern. It is commonly used to control the water level and the flow of the water in rivers, right? So sluice gate is nothing like a barrier, right? Sluice gate is basically a barrier like thing made up of wood or metal. It is commonly used to control the water level and the flow of the water in rivers and also in canals. It also regulates the outflow of the water from the tank into the channels and irrigates the fields. It is considered to be one of the greatest engineering feat in medieval Chola Tamil Nadu. You see, it is very important invention, right? Because of this, we can regulate the outflow of the water from the tank, right? So that the water is not being out of the tank. Well, in the river also it is controlled nicely and all. So these are the things that you need to remember of the sluice gate. So sluice gate is basically, you see, a barrier and all, right? So you don't have to just think upon it very much. Okay, so this was all about sluice gate, right? And yes, sluice gate was also a type of greatest invention, one of the greatest invention in the medieval Cholas, Tamil Nadu, right? Now, agriculture and irrigation both received good support from the Chola kings during the rule of the Chola, right? The farmers were regarded highly by the rulers and the society alike, right? Because the farmers were very important about them at that time, right? There the farmers had some of the highest position, you see, in the society during the age of agriculture. Sometimes they were given opportunity to look after the entire village. So what I mean here is that the farmers were given the highest position in the society during the age of agriculture, and Chola Empire was a best empire when it comes to agriculture, right? It was given the best feat. You see that was the most important thing about Chola's agriculture, right? So we have completed our agriculture and irrigation. Now let's come upon administration of that empire, right? Now the first dynasty who tried to bring the whole of South India under one common rule and to a great extent succeeded were the Chola, right? The Cholas covered, they tried to bring the whole of South India, right? The system of the administration taken up of the Chola was highly organized and efficient. Now Now, why I have took this Chola Empire? Because it was excellent in agriculture and irrigation. You see, I have taught you. Now, in administration also, the Chola Empire were awesome. You see, so now as I told you, the Chola Empire was highly organized and efficient when it comes to administration, right? The Chola are best known for their local self-government at the village level, right? The king was, now you see, the king was most important person in the administration, and all authority rested in his hand. But he is not expected to look after the whole empire all by itself, because he can't. He is only one, right? He can't look after the all itself. And and Chola Empire was also a big thing, right? He is guided and advised by the councils of ministry. You have heard of Darbar, right? That things. Some kings even went on the tour of his empire to keep in better touch. Keep in better touch with his empire. Let's take a quick look into the administration of the Chola's empire. Now let's talk about the local level. Now the local level of the when it comes to administration, let's take a look in the local level, right? At the local level of the Chola administration, there were two types of villages. Where there were two types of villages, where they were Ur and Agrahara. What were they? They were Ur and they were Agrahara. Basically, the first type of village you see called the Ur. Ur consisted of settlements like peasants, right, that became prosperous with the spread of agriculture and irrigation, right? So listen my words carefully. Actually, it may sound confusing, but it's actually very simple trick. You see, at the local level of the Chola administration, there were two types of villages, which were Ur and Agrahara. Let's talk about Ur first. Okay. Now, you see, Ur consisted of settlements called peasants. Now, you see, the peasants or the farmers or the common ordinary people would live in Ur region, Ur villages, right? Ur consisted of settlements of peasants. It became prosperous with the spread of agriculture and irrigation. Now, you see, a cluster of such villages clubbed together to form a Nadu. Now, Ur is only one village, while a Nadu is comparison of many Urs. Many Urs equals to one Nadu, right? So basically, Ur consisted of the settlements like peasants, you see, ordinary people, and when we took 6-7 villages at once, it forms a Nadu. Simple as that. It's very simple, right? Ur is only one village or two village, while a Nadu is 7, 8, 9 Ur, right? So I hope you got it. I hope you got it what I mean to say it, right? The cluster of such villages like Ur clubbed together to form a Nadu, right? The affairs and the works of the Nadu were controlled by the rich persons, right? What I mean, the affairs and the work of the Nadu were controlled by the rich persons of Velala caste under the supervision of central government, right? Now, these rich peasants named, you see, the Chola kings even gave rich landowners titles like Muvenda Velam. You see, this Muvenda Velam will given. Now, these rich peasants were given a rich name like Muvenda Velam, which basically means rich peasant serving three kings as a mark of respect, right? Now, they was from Velala caste. Which caste? Velala. Where should I write? Yeah, they were from Velala caste. Which caste? Velala. Right? Now, they perform various administrative functions, including dispensing justice and collecting taxes. These were two most important things that rich peasants would do. Right? As they were very head, right? As he was head, he would do justice and he would collect the taxes from the people. Now, this was Ur. Now, let's talk about Agrahara. The second type of village at the local level was called Agrahara, which consisted of Brahmins that live on rent-free lands. You know that Brahmins were often given land grants for their poems or the flattering or services at the palace, right? Now, if you don't have heard of these land grants, just see my last part, you will got to see them, right? These land grants were commonly called Brahmadeya, right? These land grants which Brahmins will get as a reward for their poets and flatterings and all, right? These were called Brahmadeya, right? Now, as a large number of Brahmin settlements were near Kaveri river, now when we include many land grants, So the bunch of this land grants of Brahmadeya were termed as Agraharas. Okay, so I hope you got it. So basically the king would give them land grant. They will give them land for as their reward to the Brahmins, and many such rewards includes, now see, many Brahmins would settle, then it will become one village, right? And that village is called as Agrahara. Got that? So bunch of the land grants were called as Agrahara. Now each Agrahara is taken care by gathering of prominent Brahmana landholders. This was the type of assembly, right? This assembly, Sabha or Mahasabha, was very efficient. You see, they have got two separate communities to look after works like irrigation work, you see, garden works, temple works. It was recorded in detail in inscription, often on the stone walls, you see. So this was the thing about Agraharas. So basically in Ur there would live ordinary people, while in Agraharas they would live Brahmins would live here, right? Only Brahmins. Now you will see what about the head who just seek out there, what happens to them? Well, the Sabha had a unique way of taking their committee or picking up member. Well, the names of the eligible landholders, right? The name of the eligible landholders were written in the palm leaves, right? A young boy comes. A young boy is taken or asked to pick a leaf from an earthen pot one by one for each of the committees, such as irrigation, gardens and temples and so on, whose name comes in the palm leaves. He would be winner, or you see, he would be landholder of that area. Okay, sorry guys for disturbance in between. So what I was trying to tell you was that basically this Sabha was having a unique way of taking the committee, right, or picking up the member, right? So basically the eligible landholders were names were written in palm leaves, and a young boy comes out there. Then he is asked to pick a leaf from an earthen pot one by one for each of the committees, such as irrigation, gardens and temples, so on. And there, when he will take that palm leaves, there he will read the name and that person will be selected. And so this was the basic concept of the way of picking member, right? So now let me tell you, a cluster of Agrahara clubbed together to form a Nadu. So here we have a Nadu formed by Ur, and there we have a Nadu formed by Agrahara. So there were two types of Nadu, right? There were two Nadus basically. One Nadu which was formed by Ur, and the second Nadu which was formed by Agrahara. So many Ur combining together forms Nadu, and also when we combine many Agraharas with each other, when we collect many Agraharas, then we will get a Nadu, right? So both the Chola villages have the freedom to govern their village by itself and control its own affair without much intervention of central government. You see, so I hope you got it what is about the concept of Nadu. Basically, there are two Nadus in Chola Empire. The first Nadu which was formed by Ur, and the second Nadu which was formed by Agrahara. Now, about 500 Nadus formed by Ur and Agraharas together formed the province, which was again called Mandalam. Basically, now we have heard of Nadu, right? So basically, clusters of Ur and you see Agraharas were Nadu. Now, about 500 Nadu or more than 500 Nadu together formed by Ur and Agraharas together, which were called as province. We also name it as Mandalam, right? Now you see, there was 9 such Mandalam, and there was only 9 Mandalam in the Cholas Empire, and together we get the Cholas Empire. So how many Mandalams or how many provinces were there in Cholas Empire? There were 9 provinces in Cholas Empire, right? So basically, clusters of Ur and clusters of Agraharas were named as Nadus, and the clusters of Nadus clubbed together was named as province, right? Also Mandalam. And there were total 9 Mandalams in Cholas Empire, right? So the Chola state was a state of profit, comfort, protection and prosperity. The Chola rulers built network of roads which were useful for trade and commerce. Now the rulers paid high regards to scholars, saints and poets. You see, the scholars of the Chola period worked for excellence in every sphere. For example, literature and culture. and you have heard of it, right? Now, when it comes to inscriptions and text also, right? Inscription that we find today are mostly talking about the kings, right, and the powerful men. But there was one work named Periyapuram, basically, which was about the life of the ordinary men and the women. And thanks to work like this, we can now construct a real picture of how people used to live back then in the life of Chola, right? In Chola, during the imperial rule, were unique and innovative, right? When it comes to agriculture, the Chola rule was unique and innovative, right? The irrigation and even their administration, their agriculture. Let me write here. First of all, their agriculture. Second thing, their irrigation. And third thing, their administration. Right? Yes, their administration basically. These three things were basically unique and innovative when it comes to medieval dynasty, medieval period, right? It is for the reason that the Chola period is considered as one of the finest chapters of this South Indian history, right? So basically we have learned everything, not everything. We have learned a sort of good thing about Cholas, right? How Cholas would live in that area, what were the kings of the Cholas, and how people would live in the Cholas, right? So these are the new thing we have learned in class 7 about the life history of South India, right? So if you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and if you hope I can persuade with this, and please share this with your friends and family. And yes, stay home, stay safe.